On the Assistant DevRel team, we often hear from developers that designing voice-first experiences is trickier than it may seem. Using voice as a mode of input for software has been revolutionary for so many reasons. It wasn't long ago that having a conversation with a computer was something we only saw in sci-fi movies, and it's really amazing that today we get to live that reality. It may feel like we're all experts in using voice for apps. After all, most people use their own voice to interact with one another all the time. This can make it feel like designing interactive experiences for voice should be second nature. In reality, many of us are still new to designing these experiences, and it takes a real, concerted effort to get them right. Thankfully, we've got lots of great UX research that can help us improve our conversational designs proactively and reactively. I'll explain some of the things we've learned from that research today. Like many design rules and theories, these are things that might sound super obvious once you've heard them said aloud, but trust me, having your team learn about designing for voice before getting deep into the weeds will be more productive than shoehorning good practices into your experiences later on. There are some subtle but important differences in expectations when a person is speaking to a device and not a human. For example, people interacting with your action may become impatient when their device responds with a long-winded repetition of what they just said, or get frustrated if your app doesn't interpret what they're saying in the way a person might. Let's start with some tips for working with text-to-speech, or TTS. Try to keep your text-to-speech brief. Obviously, there are exceptions to this rule, such as interactive storytelling experiences. But for the most part, research indicates that users don't like listening to long TTS messages, especially children whose attention spans are notably short. This is particularly good to know if you're working for games for smart displays. Here, you can take advantage of the medium and use the display to show your gamers what's going on, as well as telling them. Show a text version of your speech on screen, and provide a skip button to let users get through TTS more quickly once they're done reading. While creating these experiences, bear in mind that you should strike a balance between voice and touch interactions. When designing for smart displays, it's best to assume that your users will be using your app with their voice first. It may be a child listening to a bedtime story from their bed, or a home cook whose hands aren't free to tap their device. You should also consider both the device and the environment you're designing for. How users interact with a smart speaker in their living room is going to be vastly different from how they interact with a voice system in the car or with their phone in a public space. In the car, keeping your users' attention on the road is paramount. You'll want to avoid confusing or complicated interactions to keep drivers safe. Similarly, for many mobile apps, it may be helpful to consider scenarios in which the people using your app are in semi-public spaces, like walking to the grocery store in their neighborhood or commuting on a bus or a train. These people likely don't want to have a full-on conversation with Assistant, but instead may want to use a voice command as a shortcut to get to a specific place in your app. For actions experiences on smart displays for the home, the interaction scenario is much more open. Your users will be more ready to listen to and watch your app for feedback, but they may be doing it from across the room. Note the important difference here. They may not be interested in doing a ton of on-screen interaction, but having simple options on screen are still a good idea. When planning your conversation design, consider the use cases of new, returning, and experienced users. New users will probably need more explanation in order to set their expectations and to prompt them for types of information that you're looking for. Makes sense, right? Returning users will appreciate hearing just a tiny bit less instruction when your app is called. We call this tapering. Finally, if they come back to your app more than 3 or 4 times, you can likely consider them experienced users. These are people who usually don't need the same level of explanation and may feel like your action is wasting their time instead of saving it if you're giving them a full set of instructions when they talk to your app. In these cases, you can taper your prompts to an even shorter version where possible. It should feel just that much snappier and will help your returning users feel productive and valued. To learn more from the Google Assistant Developer Relations team, you can connect with us on Twitter at Actions on Google, or check out Assistant on Air on YouTube for the latest tips and tricks from Google Assistant.